Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful planet of ours. We like to say you are the inspired and the inspiration. So let's be inspired. Let's inspire others, and let's inspire before we expire. Welcome to Inspired Living, where every moment is an opportunity to ignite your passions and curiosities and embrace the many mysteries, phenomenons, the unknown, the ordinary, and yes, the extraordinary. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here with you yet again for what I like to call soul adventures and inspiring episodes to explore, discuss, and discover the many diamonds within each and every one of us and the many hidden gems that have yet to be revealed to us and the world. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we embark on a journey of inspiration, motivation, and transformation. Whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your own home, on the road, or wherever life takes you, this show is designed to uplift your spirit and empower your dreams. Inspired Living is all about fostering a supportive and empowering community. Each episode will highlight incredible guests like the one we have today who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and make a positive impact in their respective fields and our amazing and beautiful world. The journey matters, and we want to celebrate your victories, no matter how big or how small. And together, we can cultivate a mindset of possibility to unlock the doors to our dreams. Inspired listeners can expect engaging discussions, thought-provoking questions, and actionable steps to manifest inspiration into your own reality. And of course, we couldn't do this without our listeners, so we always give a big shout out and say thank you to all of our inspired listeners from around the globe, the universe, and yes, beyond. The team and I are so very humbled and grateful to you for listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews, and voting to make Inspired Living not only a best inspirational show, but a best spiritual show to follow and listen to as referenced by FeedSpot. And you can get us wherever you get your favorite podcast and whatever platform that is. But we want to just say we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you. So keep on listening, because we've got more shows coming into the rest of this year and the new year. So if you've not yet subscribed, liked, or followed the show, there's always time to do so over on our main social media platforms. Our main page over on Facebook, look for Inspired Living and Podcasts. Thank you to the over 3,000 inspired listeners on that community page. We're also over on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Just look for the name Inspired For Us. That's the number 4, Inspired For Us. And of course, you can always catch us over on our YouTube channel, Inspired Living. And we are now streaming through Audible and wherever you get your favorite podcast shows. So let's get ready to be inspired, uplifted, encouraged, and motivated, because I like to say the best is always yet to come. So let's go prospecting together, shall we? And with that, let's all take that nice, deep, collective divinity breath as we welcome our guest today. Her name is Bolinger-McQuade, and she is an award-winning author of Everyday Oracles. She helps people find comfort and connection by reorganizing the meaningful signs that appear in everyday life. Through her work, Anne teaches readers how to listen to intuitive messages that offer guidance, reassurance, and healing especially during times of loss and transition. Her insights bridge the emotional and spiritual dimensions of healing, showing how everyday experiences can become a source of strength and inspiration. That's why we have her on Inspired Living. Anne is a regular contributor to magazines, popular workshops, facilitator, and a guest on radio talk shows like today. Anne shares her curiosity and passion for discovering the hidden, yet obvious, and encourages us to tune into the guidance and support that surrounds all of us. Anne's perspective on the world is alive, nurturing, and filled with personal oracles, naturally springs from her Native American ancestry. As a child growing up in Kansas, she was intrigued with the idea of having Native American ancestors. I am totally intrigued with that as well, but never considered her heritage relevant to her life. Her ancestral imprints began to emerge when a series of personal events that were triggered by her breast cancer diagnosis sent her hurling into what she describes as an invisible moving sidewalk. Imagine the people carriers at airports, is how she describes it. Anne believes that at certain times we all land on such a sidewalk designed to carry us to specific destinations. This particular sidewalk transported her to a place where oracles that were hiding in plain sight seemed to magically appear at precisely the right time, and coined the term personal oracles to describe those mysterious messages that guide and comfort all of us. And in doing so, illuminated an interconnected world that is tuned in and available to us at all times. And makes her home in Tucson. And with her love of her life, her husband Kenneth, and her dogs Rusty and Pandora, and a cat named Moonboy. And for many blessings in her life, she gives thanks. If you want to connect with Anne and her award-winning book, you can go to all of our social media pages, which is posted there. You can also go to the main website, extraordinaryextradimensions.com. And with that, Anne, my friend, welcome to this moving sidewalk of inspiration.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I'm just so excited to be here. I have learned a little bit about you, and I feel like we're totally on the same page.
We really are, because a lot of my teachings I'm always talking about, and I love in your bio that it wasn't, you didn't really tune into your ancestry background until life threw what life always does. Life always throws a lot of stuff at us, right? Like breast cancer. For me, it was my brother being murdered, my other brother being diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, all in the same week. That really changed us, right? It really got us to think about, okay, what is life all about? And that moving sidewalk, like you described in the airport. You got on that moving sidewalk and realized, oh, there is guidance all around us. There is that divinity. There is that spiritual God essence, whatever each person wants to describe it as. But you and I came to the same realization, and then you really started tuning into your Native American ancestry background, which I don't have, but I've always been intrigued with. But tell us a little bit about your personal journey that really unlocked that door to become here today to write about these personal oracles. And the rest of it is decoding the divine messages that are all around us, because they are really divine messages.
They really are, and we are all receiving them. It's just a matter of recognizing them, of seeing what's going on and paying attention, tuning in, and we use the terminology of decoding them for yourself because they're all so different. And I would love to go. I'm going to jump forward and back for just a moment. You talked about personal oracles, and as everybody's starting to listen to this, and if we're talking about these messages that are all around us.
Mm-hmm.
We came up with I studied this, I researched, I developed it, and came up with this term, personal oracles. And this is the formula. It's a need, then watch, you'll see a message, you'll see a need, excuse me, I got it backward, a need, and then you'll see an available recipient or wait, I made a little note here. My mind is racing. A need.
No worries.
Whoops, a need, a need, here it is, sorry, a need, a delivery system, and the message. The message is the personal oracle. So look back when things are happening to you. If you see something that happens, like, let's go, you mentioned the breast cancer. Go back to the breast cancer. I had an intuitive hit that said to me, get a mammogram, get a mammogram. And I never concerned about it, though I had it in my family. And all of a sudden, I went, wait a minute, and that's not you. That message is important. And I got a mammogram. It was minuscule. It was growing in my body. So for me, hearing, paying attention, and seeing how my intuition was guiding me, and knowing that was giving me information that I had no way to know. So that was that little key in there, that we all have our own little keys of what it is. It could be grief that's making us go, what's even the point? And when you look at a personal oracle and you see these divine messages that are all around us, the bottom line to that is that we're all safer than we realize. Whatever's going on in the world, we're all ultimately safer than we realize because the universe is designed to respond to our needs. So that's something that I think can carry us through when we really think about it, start to watch watch it happen in our life and go, wait a minute, I am being here. I am getting advice here. I'm getting forewarned about things, and
Hmm.
I think that you might a lot of people may refer to them as synchronicities, uh,
Hmm.
things like that. Well, they are personal or coincidences. Look
Hmm.
deeper. Look at the formula. They are all designed to help us in the way we interpret them.
Hmm.
And I want to
Yeah,
back up. I'm a back. I said, can you care if I now move backward and give you the really quick thing? I've always been fascinated with images. That's part of the whole Native American things: the clouds, the rocks, the trees,
hmm.
the fire, water. It's all alive and it's speaking to you.
Correct.
So I've
Correct.
always been fascinated with that. But then, as I grew into it, I started to realize they really did have all of nature had messages for me. The radio had messages for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
Cleveland, someone said in a random situation, the post office or something, and I hear someone saying something, and it's the answer exactly to what I was
Hmm.
working on in my mind. So when we fan our mind out and allow ourselves to pay attention to what's kind of feeling a little nudge. We feel a little nudge or something that is our own personal way of going, wait, look again, listen again. Wait, what was that? Write it down.
Yeah, and it's in my journey, I like to blend science and spirituality, and of course history,
Yeah,
being a student of history. And when I really started, and I can totally understand what you're talking about, I sometimes refer to the Matrix or the universe, but I always go back to Einstein's quotes, because Einstein was just such a brilliant mind, and he always talked
yeah.
about that the coincidence. I'm paraphrasing here, but he talked about that coincidence and that synchronicity is God's way of remaining anonymous. And again, whoever or whatever God is to our listeners that are listening to the show right now. But it's always kind of made me wonder, and I'm going to bring up Eckhart Tolle here because he always said that awareness is the greatest agent for change. And when you and I got on our elevators of our airport elevators of awareness, it then started to open up that how the universe does talk to us, how it communicates with us through through those coincidences, through those synchronicities. And then I add in there the signs, the symbols, and the synergy, because everything is energy. And when you blend your energy with something else around you, that is the synergy of life. And so, this book was really interesting to me because I could really resonate with a lot of what you're saying. And again, I'm just going to say I'm so glad that you explored and prospected your Native American ancestral background, because I've always been fascinated with the culture and the philosophy and how they lived with the land and lived on the land, and they had it right. And uh, it's just, to me, they talk about portals. They talk about all of life surrounding us and how we're all interconnected, and that the universe does interact with us. But again, it comes back to our own free will and choice, right? If we're listening, if we are choosing to be aware, and many people listening to the show may not even be aware of it, but maybe they haven't got on that moving escalator of grief or death and dying or traumas or tragedies like you and I did, and that's where awareness is born out. But for people carrying the weight of grief, like for me, it was grief that really brought me to my spiritual side of what I do today. What's one small thing that people, the listeners of the show today, that they can do to feel less alone and to start tuning into what we're going to be talking about this hour?
Well, and I think that the thing that they can do the most is recognize, and I already mentioned this, but it's really the key. If you feel lost and alone, or whatever this grief is doing, there's so many different kinds of grief and all the different ways we experience. But I think a lot of times it leaves you feeling lonely and alone. And realize, start paying attention. That would be the thing they can do. Start paying attention. Is Are they really alone? Are they really? Start to ask yourself, if you feel that way, are you really alone? It's going to take a minute, but start to pay attention to the things I mentioned, the signs that are around you, the things that come up in conversation, the things that you might see. You might even just look up at the sky and feel, allow yourself to get out of your brain and feel it. Feel this
Mm-hmm.
energy that will pour into you from the universe to help you make your way through it. I want to go ahead, as I am trying to draw the picture of opening yourself to the universe,
Yeah, please.
radiating a soulful, soothing energy into you. If you feel like crying, cry. I believe that releasing sadness and sorrow and grief is vital to the process as we move. So I would say open yourself up and and allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to release. Allow yourself to cry as much or as often as you. And I know for me personally, so many years ago, when I was very, very young, I was afraid if I ever cried, I would never stop. I think that
Hmm.
probably there are others that might feel that. What would happen? Find your find yourself a place. If you're not an easy crier, I've read about people who like to watch movies that they know will make them cry. Something
Oh
that
yeah.
can get you over that. I don't even. Where do I even begin? Watch a movie that will, and then you do the trick. Each of us do our own trick to go. Okay, that felt. Wow, that felt kind of good, and find our own way. I think when you have formulas and knowledge of things that will help us through, it's kind of good to use those and then take it into your own direction. And um, sometimes I think of tears are like windshield wipers that are automatic, and sometimes they just go on automatically when it just starts to you start to have some grief on your window. That's what I'm on your windshield. I'm calling that. That's the grief in the form of rain. But then sometimes it just can't go fast enough, and you need to pull over.
Hmm.
Think about that. Let your automatic. What should we call it? Help me, Mark. What can we call that instead of a windshield wiper system? Your automatic regulator. Call it that. Your
I
automatic
like that. Yeah.
soul regulator that will regulate you. Trust to regulate to take you as far as you can go and as.
Yeah, I love that. A diamond in the show, a diamond in the show. And for the listeners, because grief is a big part of this journey, and maybe look at grief as a companion. I always
Oh,
say
love it.
it's that idea, right, of healing is that personal journey with no timeline, and the enduring connection between us, that love, that loss, and that gratitude. And it's funny that you said movies, because yesterday was Veterans Day, and I always, as a veteran myself, I always watch Saving Private Ryan. That is a movie at the end when he salutes. I could just get choked up talking about it right now, but when he salutes at the end, it's enough to bring tears to my eyes for the sacrifices that many, many people around the world have given us to enjoy these freedoms that we have. And there's that old saying that we don't know them all, but we owe them all. And so, with respect and
Oh,
honor and gratitude, we thank our veterans, right? And so that is a big part of grief. But one of the things that, as I was preparing for today's show, Anne, is it's a quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote The Five Stages of Death and Dying. And she says this, quote, "The reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal, and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same," end quote. And that's by the great Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote The Five Stages of Death and Dying. Something that I learned very well when I was going through my trials and tribulations, just like what you went through. Um, but for the inspired listeners out there, what happens as we're having this conversation? We're already planting seeds through this show today of people going, oh, maybe I'll start paying attention to the patterns or the symbols or the synchronicities in their daily life. How can we become more aware of how the universe, and accepting of what, because just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not here or around us, right? Gravity, air, the wind that moves through the trees. We don't see the wind, right? But we see the effects of the wind. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. The list goes on and on. So, what would you say to inspired listeners to help them with the magic? And I mean magic from a spiritual standpoint, not pulling a rabbit out of the hat, to understand that the universe is working with us and to become aware of these patterns and symbols that you write about.
okay. Well, here's one thing that I really like to encourage people to do that I did. I did kind of by osmosis. I just started to write things down,
Mm.
or I would take a picture, or I would write it down, and then my journey. My journey was. I am not one of those people that I have to keep. I'm basically an orderly person, but I wasn't putting those in one place. I would like to
Hmm.
recommend something for people who are starting to look at. It's like, wait a minute, did I hear that? Did I see that? Did I notice that? Write it down. Draw draw a picture on anything. Write it down on if you're out in a restaurant and it's a napkin, write it on if it's a paper napkin, write it on a paper napkin. Write it on anything. We all carry our cell phones. Put it in the store it in your cell phone wherever you can. Write it in your little
Hmm.
note section. Then you keep them in one place. Like if you're writing on a napkin or a piece of paper, put them in one place, like a sticker note. I call it a sticker note shoebox method, which then you create your own body of evidence as it accumulates. One may not do it, two may not do it. Your number will be your number where it starts to click, and you go, oh, wait, this is really happening. This is not my imagination. For people, and I want to just touch back a minute to the Native American perspective. We all were born into a certain perspective. The Native American perspective is that the universe is interconnected, that it's a multidimensional. That comes very easily. Celtic is also that way. There are a lot of uh, people who are born into a formula that they just are around it with their family. Uh,
Hmm.
so if you weren't, it's going to be a little trickier. But I want to share maybe something that my family, because being Native American, they just when my uncle died, they started to notice cardinals. If
Hmm.
there was a family gathering, there was a cardinal. If it was a family in the hospital, I promise you, there was a cardinal perched in the windowsill of the person that was in the hospital. And so my family, even my uncle Herb, who actually was
Hmm.
a Methodist minister, I think there's something fun in there that a cardinal and a Methodist minister. I love that little synchronicity there. But you start to see that, and you're like, oh wait, he left his body, but he stayed. He has ways of connecting with us. So if you're in the loss of someone who really loved that you cared about, or just someone that PTSD survivors, uh, birds are and I imagine that you've all talked about things like that. Birds
Hmm.
are a wonderful, like a carrier, not a carrier pigeon, but hawk. All birds, they seem to have that magical connection. Not the cat, not the pulling out the uh, hat, the bunny from the hat that you kind of referred to earlier, but
Right, right.
a real frequency. Come on, guys, there's a frequency out there. You brought in the science and all that, start to go a little deeper, and you're going to see it all connects to frequencies. That there's frequencies, the afterlife frequency. There's a book out called The Afterlife
Hmm.
Frequency by Mark uh, Anthony, and it
Hmm.
talks about that tingling. Have you ever felt that tingling? Not necessarily you. I bet you have, Mark. For
Oh yeah,
people who
many
are
times.
listening,
Yeah.
even they say that for all my life I've heard not that often, but ooh, you feel a tingle up your spine. That's somebody walked across somebody's grave or some funny thing like that. But as
Right.
this man has quantified it all, and so does science, uh, there's just all kinds of stuff. I started to name them all, and I decided I shouldn't start doing that. But there's
Mhm.
there's a lot of scientific evidence now that is quantifying and measuring that we don't leave. Our body shuts down. And my husband, uh, his body shut down in 14, and he stayed. And I was very comfortable with that idea because it felt natural. I'd had that. He uh, also came up with something, and we've now written another book together that we'll talk about another time. It's not
Mhm.
published yet, but we hope in 25 it is. Kenneth, my husband, Kenneth Francis McQuade, equated an orb to a spacesuit. Now, some of you may have taken photos and gotten with your cell phone, and you see that the cell phone can, or a camera can pick up things that our eyes can't see. That's just a fact. Our eyes don't have that lens in it. So because he was an engineer, NASA engineer, and so he equated an orb to a space. Both are designed as temporary travel gear for a specific atmosphere. Just as a physical birthday suit is temporary travel gear for the immortal soul. So I started to think of our bodies, this physical wonderful body that we inhabit. It's a birthday suit. It's not our soul. It's a container for our soul. But I think that there are a lot of quotes out there about we are not spirits having a soul experience. We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirits having a human experience. So we are spirits having a human experience. When we realize that this is all purposeful, that we are so much bigger than our body, so much. Our soul is immortal. Our body's immortal. So when we start to dig around, and you will, as all of you and as I am, and I know you are, we're digging around in what's going on. It's an exciting time to be alive in our bodies, and I'm sure out of our bodies too, but to find out what other people are quantifying in what links science, frequency, and physicality.
Yeah, and as Nikola Tesla said back in the late 1800s, if you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So we're going to go to our break for this show. We're going to be back in just a few minutes with our special guest today, Anne Bolinger-McQuade, talking about her award-winning book, Everyday Oracles: Decoding the Divine Messages That Are All Around Us. You'll want to stay tuned.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
One planet, 7.3 billion people. Only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Inspired Living. Our special guest today, Anne Bolinger-McQuade, award-winning book, Everyday Oracles, Decoding the Divine Messages that are all around us. And during the break, you had talked about the cardinal, and I want to talk about the clouds and some of the chapters in your book. And what I did is, because you had talked about cardinal, because we had something very similar when my father-in-law passed away from MS at the young age of 47, we would have a red-tailed hawk show up. And it's been he's been in the spirit world now for several years, over 20 years now. But to this day, we will still get a red-tailed hawk that will show up. And what the cool thing about that is, not that he's a red-tailed hawk necessarily, but it triggers the mind for a communication to take place. And so what I did is I looked up in my handy Animal Spirit Guides book by Dr. Stephen Farmer, who was a former guest of the show a couple seasons back. And under the cardinal, it says, when the cardinal shows up, someone needs your compassionate and loving attention and has flagged you down to get it. Stop right where you are, observe your surroundings, and notice the sensations in your body, which you talked about, the energy. I call them the glimmers that we can pick up because we are a big walking antenna, and how we tune in is all completely up to us. But it also says that this is also a very creative time on where it's best to head your intuitive guidance as to how to express this creativity. Add color to your life in your home environment, your yard, and your choices of clothing, because the cardinal is usually red. And so I looked that up just to see what the spiritual meaning was from that interaction. But the cool thing is it triggers the mind to think of your uncle. I think you said his name was Herb. To think of Uncle Herb, to let you know that he's just a thought away. And, as I tell my clients and my students and my listeners, whether you believe in the afterlife or heaven or Summerland, whatever definition you have for it, it's not a location, because we're on a round planet. And metaphysically, you can't go up or down on a round planet to get to, heaven or hell. It's actually, heaven is a frequency, like you talked about, and tuning into that frequency is very, very important. But I want to talk about, you had talked about in your book about hidden dimensions and personal oracles, the portals into hidden dimensions. And you had talked about your father with the clouds, and it reminded me of a quote that C.S. Lewis had. C.S. Lewis wrote the book, one of my favorite stories, the Chronicles of Narnia, The Witch, the Lion, and the Wardrobe, which is all about going into a portal, right? He said, her absence is like the sky spread over everything. Tell us a little bit about the story of the picture that still resides in your office today on your father's profile, and looking at clouds and sky gazing and all that.
Well, the one that I don't know if this is the one that you're talking about, but about the image of my dad. This is the one. It's the last in the last chapter of the book, and it's expect the unexpected, and you won't be disappointed. And I was walking the labyrinth that we have near our home that my husband had built for me. And if you've ever done a labyrinth, you know that you start as a labyrinth. You start out and you are following a path, and you can't tell exactly where it's going, but it ends up in this, which is life. Life is exactly like that. It's not a maze with blocks in it. It proceeds in the direction that's taking you where you want to go. So I had someone that had been at one of my seminars, and she was at my home, and she was walking with me, and all of a sudden I could feel my dad. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him, and I had my camera with me, and I took a picture, and it's, again, toward the end of the book, and I took a picture in the sky right where I knew where he was. I did not see him. Chances are I wouldn't have been able to, or I might have, because I've definitely seen my share of cloud images, but that's both. It could be, something that the camera lens picks up, or your eyes can pick up. But I picked it up, and I took a picture, and later we did not interrupt each other as we got toward the end of it and finished, and we're talking, and she noticed I took it, and I said I could just tell my father was with me. He was there. And he was 10 years or 11 years after he passed, he was with us walking the labyrinth. So it's the energy you're talking about of the soul's energy that will reveal itself to us like the birds we were talking about. And I love that quote. Thank you so much for that quote. And that related to the signs that you were getting, and the red that also relates to what was going on with my Uncle Herb. But he also earlier on, and the start of the book will go back to my father. And my father is at the end of the book, and an image, a photo. We only have 9 pictures in this book, but we have the photograph there. And clearly he was showing us that he's still there. And time again is irrelevant. That was, I mentioned just a minute ago or seconds ago, 10 or 11 years. At the very first, when we open up, my father has just, he's just died. His body has shut down. But as we are talking about today, that doesn't mean that you're gone. That means
Correct.
that your soul does not have a birthday suit to inhabit anymore. So,
Right.
yeah, so I was taking care of the arrangements, and I was born and raised in Kansas, and my dad, we were going to have my father transported back to Kansas, and I have a picture. I walked out. I was doing things that were related to that in his office, and I walked outside, and there was my husband. This is also a photo in the early part of the book, and Kenneth is washing a car, and there is this one is an outline almost of my father's image, and I said, "Oh my gosh, Kenneth, look, it's my dad," and he saw it too. So it's that way that when we're out, not in our birthday suits, we can continue to relate to our messages to our people. And so this is what I've just started to think about personal oracles as secret messages. The word secret, I think, is very appealing to somebody. Some people, maybe it's me, I don't know. But anyway, and they're coded. So it's like a secret code. So if you're looking for your own, they're all our own, your secret codes, then you are the one who's going to see them. There's another image in the book, if you've got it in front of you, Mark, right now, and maybe some of you already have it. There's also another time that talks about that kind of is an example of what I'm talking about. What I see, somebody else might not see because it's my sign. And so Kenneth and I are driving from one destination to another, and I'm driving in the car with dogs, and he's driving in the car with the dog, and I look up, and I just always have this. It's not really a prayer. I don't pray, but I talk. I mean, I talk to the universe and all that. It's not like an official prayer, but I send up this thought when we're traveling, like safe journey, and it's kind of that, just safe journey. I wouldn't say this, but hey guys, safe journey. If you want to, please. So we're driving along, and we've been going for a long time, and I start to see in front of my husband's car, there's this image of a perfect heart. Well, clouds, if you're a cloud watcher, and so many of us are, if you're a cloud watcher, they'll move and reshape. And so I've noticed over the years that the ones that have a real message will stay. They almost just hover. There's an energy that really is in it that makes it stay. So it was. I watched because I don't take pictures when I'm driving, and so and we were on an isolated area. But I think, okay, I'm in this straight road. There's nobody around. That's been going for 20 minutes. I take a picture, and within I don't even know, a very short period of time, my husband, I think it was the right-hand back tire of his car blew out, and he just pulled safely to the side. Now that to me was that signal that the universe was, yes, we were protecting you. Because and so I of course pulled over, and I get out and I say, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?" And he said, "What? What cloud?" Well, that was mine. It was there. I have a photo of it. That doesn't mean that Kenneth wasn't observant. That means that it was my personal oracle. And so when you try to share, if you're in a situation, maybe that is why I shared it right now, or one of the reasons. If you're in a situation where you want to share it with someone, it's okay if they don't either see it or don't even understand it when you're trying to share it. It's yours. It's the universe speaking directly to you. And I want to encourage all of us to share with kindred spirits, or even dip your toe in if you don't even know if they're a kindred spirit. But go ahead and share. And I think that we create this network of like-minded people that are seeing or sending that. You were talking, or you and I both were, Mark, about frequency levels. As we do all this, I believe firmly that we raise the energy, the frequency level of the universe each time these significant, important healing things happen, instead of keeping it low. We raise it just naturally. It's a frequency level that we all vibrate on. So it's exciting to share and know when to share and know when not to. And if you make a mistake, big deal. Try it again.
Yeah, exactly. One of my mantras is fail, first attempt in learning, because like you said earlier in the show, we're all here to learn, and we learn through our failures, right? Pain and failure is the greatest teacher, as the great Jedi Master Yoda, talks about in Star Wars. But, it's showing up too. And you talk about, in the end of your book, you talk about, you're talking about your friend, about reading about other people's experiences can open the door. And people listening to today's show is opening the door, but stepping through that door and having your firsthand experience transforms theory into knowing. So savor the experiences, savor the knowing, as you write in your book. And I think that's so true, because what is meant for you and what is seen by you is not necessarily the same perspective that another person is going to have. And that's the cool thing about clouds, right? Cloud watching. What one person sees, another person may see something else that's relative to them, because the universe speaks to you in your perspective, right? And so it's interesting too, because as technology progresses, I think eventually in the future we will have equipment that will allow us to tune in and maybe visually see everything that we're talking about today. It's no different than if we go back, 100 and whenever the camera was first invented. Native Americans didn't like to have their pictures taken from a historical standpoint, because they actually felt it was capturing their soul. It was actually imprisoning the essence of their soul energy, and they didn't like to have their pictures taken. But yet now everybody has a smartphone with a built-in high-resolution camera in today's age. It's very similar like the telephone. People didn't realize the telephone was first created to talk with the dead, not the living. And so I believe in the future we'll have this scientific and spiritual concept that will help us embrace what is seen and what is unseen. I always say we have three eyes in life: two to look, the human eyes, and then the third eye, the pineal gland, one to see. And I think a lot more people are opening up to that concept, backed by mathematics, backed by scientific method, backed by spiritual concepts that people have been talking about for hundreds of years. What you and I are talking about today, and is not new. This has been documented, story told for hundreds of generations, paintings. I mean, it's so fun and it's so amazing. But it's just the adage that energy never dies, the same energy that's in your heart right now. And I love how you described it as a birthday suit, temporary or birthday suit. That energy in your heart, from a anatomy and physiology standpoint, has to go somewhere. Energy doesn't cease to exist. It has to always go back to its source. And so for you listeners out there, that should give you comfort that when you're open and aware to it, it doesn't always happen overnight. It evolves over time. So give yourself patience. But the more you ask, the more you receive, the more you believe, the more you're going to perceive, and you're going to find out exactly what we're talking about today are these personal oracles. So Anne, for you, just for the sake of time, because I could talk to you for hours, because this just goes by so quick. For those that are feeling disconnected, or they're hearing us talk and they're like, yo, sure. What's one easy way to invite more meaning into our ordinary moments? I've got something I want to say from a Star Wars quote because I'm a big nerd of Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars. I was 5 years old when Star Wars came out. But the philosophy behind the living force and how we're all connected, the evil and the good, the empire and the rebellion, all of that. But for you, what's one simple daily practice to our listeners where they can feel more guided and supported and turning that ordinary meaning into extraordinary moments?
Well, and I this is something that's, as you were talking, I was really feeling compelled, and I think that to share again that I do, and I think that some of your people will be. Some of the people listening to this, your people, our people, the people of the world that are listening to this, a camera. Don't forget the camera. I have my camera close by. I actually have a cell phone camera that I can wear on a little thing around my neck. It's a lanyard thing, and I keep it close by. And take a photo anytime you feel like taking a photo. That is that scientific link that is using science, because it's the lens. We have a good friend, Jim McDivitt, who was an astronaut in the Apollo, and he's a good friend of Kenneth. He's also no longer in his body. But when I started to share some of the images I was getting from Kenneth, of Kenneth after his body was shut down, he said to me, when we went in space, we took cameras. Yes. The cameras we took had lenses that our eyes cannot see. The bottom line is, if you take a camera and you photograph something, I'm not saying you're going to get orbs or something. Non-visible light frequency will show up in cameras as a pink light. So there's another way that if you're really looking for secrets that want to show up to you, don't forget if you're intrigued by it, don't forget your camera. And then also, maybe imagine that you're on, this is a little much for every day, but imagine you're on a scavenger hunt and you're just looking for specific things. And the things that you're looking for are your own personal oracles. You know, you can define it because because of the formula. Now I'm reading it because I messed it up the first time. You'll see it's a need, it's your need. What's the delivery system? Okay, clouds could be the delivery system. Whatever you see could be the non-visible light frequency that you catch on your camera. And then you'll get a message, and it's your own message. You're the only one that can decode that. Well, maybe not, but you can definitely decode it. I know that you're an intuitive, so I know that you can probably do someone else's as well. But because they're yours, it's your message, and then that's your formula. You're going scouting around with a formula in the back of your mind, and you're going to tuck those things away, and you're going to create if you disbelieve all this, try to prove it that it's wrong. Try to look for those things. Don't see them.
Exactly.
Be your own guide. Be your own authority.
I love that. And as you were talking, I wrote down, because I have a background in medicine, so we're always talking acronyms. And so I call it the NDM and method: a need, a delivery, a message. And so
I love it.
So it's a good way to remember it. An NDM, a need, a delivery system, and a message. And it's just fascinating. I'd love to have you come back on the show and continue to talk about this, and because we only have a few minutes left. But what's interesting is, we talk about the camera capturing. So, for you inspired listeners, if you get that glimmer, if you get that, that energy and that, I feel like somebody's around, start just taking pictures and see what the camera captures, right? That's brilliant. And even write down. Yeah. So
write it down. Yeah.
Write it down as your delivery system, because I think our technology is just going to get even more advanced. And this is one thing you don't know about me, because you said that your husband Kenneth worked for NASA. Is that, or did I miss?
He
or did I
read? He's if you look him up, and he's on our internet. He was the chief engineer on the first space shuttle. He was involved in GPS developing, led teams that did GPS. So he's all over science. So that's why he can be a guide for us. When we get that book out, you'll see that he's got methods and things like that. You make up your own. Always create your own. But we'll have formulas. You'll have, what do you call the NDM? You called it, is it an anachronism? I always have trouble with that word.
Acronym. Just an acronym, a way to remember words through an acronym. Yep.
Okay, I know what I know them, and acronyms are so easy. And may I now use the NDM, please?
Oh yes, please. That's all. It's all yours.
Go look for your NDM, everybody.
Go in for your LinkedIn. So what I was going to say is, we have a connection, because a lot of people don't know this about me, but in my family, I'm actually my third cousin is Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon. So,
oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. So when you started, because I'm such a nerd for NASA and everything that's going on with the 3I Atlas comet and what it's doing, going through our solar system. So when you get that book published with your husband, come back to Inspired Living so we can talk about that, because there's just not just with the technology and the portals and these oracles and everything we're talking about today, but everything that's going on from a space standpoint, from extra dimensional UAP. It's fascinating, and a lot of people don't know about that in my family tree, that Neil Armstrong is actually in my grandma's side of the house. Is her maiden name was Armstrong, so he's actually a cousin in my family. But I've always been fascinated with space and NASA and everything that's going on right now. And an example that I'll give you, going back to the camera, but as we start to wrap up here, is we've had this big geostorm taking place where we're actually catching the aurora borealis lights all over the states. And in Seattle, I can't see it with my physical eye, but if I take a picture with my camera, with my iPhone, if I take a picture of what I can't see with my eye, the aurora borealis lights come alive through the picture.
Yes,
so again, just because you don't see it does not mean that it is not around you. So please, when you finish this book, reach out to my team so we can get you scheduled in 2026 to have another fascinating conversation.
We definitely will.
Yes, please. So just for the sake of time, again, if you want to learn more about what we're talking about, if you want to get the book, you can go to everydayextradimensions.com. And I'm sure you can get the book wherever the books are sold, and if you want to give a shout out or a plug for the book and where to get that, please do so.
And Amazon is always, whoever your favorite bookseller is, whether they have it on hand, they may not have it on hand, but they can order it for you and send it to you. So, please check it out.
And have you done Audible? Has it been transcribed to Audible yet? Or?
Yes, it is. It came out translated in Audible too, so it's available in Audible and printed.
Okay, and the reason I say that because you and I are a little bit more seasoned and older, so the younger generations aren't reading books as much as we used to, and they're going more to the Audible. So that's why I always, throw that out for the younger listening audience out there. So anything, what I like to do at the end of my shows is I like to ask my special guests, again, thank you for your time, because your time is your greatest commodity while you're here in this birthday suit as we travel around a big ball of fire. What's something or someone that inspires you and keeps you inspired in this, this chaos of life that we all go through?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Well, I will have to go back. I want to go back to my Native American heritage, and I want to go back to some of the people that, and some of the sayings that they have. Chief Seattle, who is quoted as saying, "There is no death, only another world." So I think I will go back to all the quotes from I'm going to also read one from, and I have it right here, and I've got books all over my office. I'll bet you would. I bet none of you are.
Me too.
That. Okay.
Yeah.
This is from Native Science, Natural Laws of Interdependence. And it is unlike the Western scientific method. Native thinking does not isolate an object or phenomenon in order to understand and work with it, but perceives it in terms of relationship. An understanding of the relationship that bind together natural forces in all forms of life has been fundamental to the ability of indigenous peoples to live for millennia in spiritual and physical harmony with the land. So, a thought of, going to the land, and I'm inspired by the Aboriginal culture. I'm inspired by the ancient ones that did. They were not distracted, and I love technology. We've been talking a lot about the cell phone, but get back. And I know you didn't ask me to give someone my idea of what they could do, but here again, get into nature, feel the earth under your feet.
Yeah,
Be
exactly.
Comfortable in you, in your way you experience life. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, no. Brilliant, and thank you for sharing that. I've always said nature's our greatest teacher, our greatest engineer, our greatest inspirer, our greatest healer. I always say church is nature. That's where your first church should always be, is returning back to your original home, which is that connection to nature. Yes. So brilliant. Like I said, these shows go by so quick because it's just so interesting and there's so much content to try to squeeze into this hour. And I love that you said Chief Seattle because I'm literally 8 miles west of Seattle, downtown Seattle. So I love the Chief Seattle comment and quote. And I just want to say thank you again for your time. And again, if you want to learn more about what we're talking about today, you can go to our social media pages where the posts, everything is posted. You can also go to everydayextradimensionals.com. And thank you for being our special guest today. And I'm actually going to close this out with a very nerdy Star Wars quote, talking about everything that we talked about today and being present. But thank you so much for being on the show today, Ann.
Thank you. Look forward to next time.
Yes, please. All right, inspired listeners, it's a quote from the famous Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, and it says, "Be here now. Remember, concentrate on the moment. Feel, don't think. Use your instincts." End quote. So, until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, wherever you're at in this world, whatever you're doing, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within and the many hidden gems that are all around us. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living.